Welcome to the Open Judaism Q&A for this week, the double parasha of Bahar-בחוקותי. I am Gil Aminadav, happy to answer all your questions, at least to the best of my ability. Looks like we got the crowd coming out. Welcome, everybody.
Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov U'Mvorach.
Todah. You seen my
B'simcha.
questions. I have plenty this week.
Yeah, I saw everyone's got a lot of good questions. I'm excited to answer them. And just want my wife asked that I remind everybody that we do have a Patreon. You can contact me about that if you want to be a sponsor of the Torah we got going on. But with that said, let's hit these questions, guys. Who wants to go first? I know, Nathaniel, you missed last week and you had a lot of questions as well. Do you want to take the lead?
Mine is shorter, so I'll start off. And I just sent it in the Q&A chat. The question was about this phrase Baishan in the Mishnah and in Yavamot in the Gemara. So basically, I'll just read it. In Yavamot
Yeah.
30a, it says that there are three signs or simanim to identify someone as a member of Am Yisrael. The first one is that they're full of mercy. The second one is that they're shamefaced, and the third one is that they perform acts of kindness. The lashon to describe the shamefaced is habaishanin. But in Pirkei Avot, it says of the baishan that a baishan is unable to learn, meaning
Yeah.
that a shamefaced or a timid person can't learn. So the question is, can you help us harmonize the two usages of the term baishan?
Yeah, sure. The Baishanut, the someone who has a sense of busha, a sense of embarrassment, as a natural inclination, we associate with the family of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abotenu. But you got to overcome it in order to learn. That is a very good question. Someone points out it's a very good observation about the contradiction. But the way I understand it is that one is talking about the natural tichunot, the natural attributes or qualities that come with the family, and one's talking about what do you actually need in order to learn. And in this case, what natural inclinations might need to be overcome.
Awesome, very helpful. Thank you. That was all my questions, Your Honor.
Well, you asked a bunch in the group about the God being perfect, and I looked up some stuff for you. Hold
Oh,
on, let's get to your questions in the
so
group.
that was last week's, but I'll let you read the others.
Yeah, we didn't get to your questions last week. In the meantime, Darius, you want to go with your questions? Darius, Nathanael.
Give me a second. I'm at work. Give me one
Okay, not a problem. Gam. Oh, Gam's here. How's it going, Gam? Shabbat Tov. Can't hear you, Gam, if you're talking into the mic. It's as if you are muted. Now you are muted. All right, so we did have a bunch of questions. I hyped them up as being a particularly inflammatory and controversial, and I did look up a lot of answers to them. So if either Gam or Darius just wants to jump into it, or Natana wants to bring back the questions that he asked in the group, let's see what we got. Shalom. Gam, is your audio not working?
No, I'm good. Can you hear
All
me?
right, you want to go for it? Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right, let me go into the to the chat because there was a lot of questions this week.
There were a lot of questions.
I feel sorry for you.
That was a good chance to do a chazara on some material.
Okay. That was last week. Okay, the first one. Dinah, was she raped or was it consensual?
I think it was statutory rape, which is still rape.
I got you.
I think it was that there was no way it could be consensual between them. due to the power differential.
Mhm.
And as a proof, as a ra'ayah to the idea that it was rape, that's how we understand the din, the judgment that was due the whole town. Like it's hard if it wasn't rape. It's hard to understand how could Shechem, and everyone, how could they have been held accountable? What were they held accountable for? Why do they deserve the death penalty? But if we understand it to be rape, then it makes sense. And it was kind of like you would say it was with her consent, but she wasn't able to consent. She was too young and he was too powerful.
Hey, Lexi, I mean. Hi, if you have any questions, someone else go up in the order copy. Okay.
Sure. Nathaniel or Darius, do you want to jump in with your questions?
I'll let Darius go first. Unless he needs time.
Sure. Darius, you want to jump in? We've got a comment here. They didn't deserve the death penalty. That's why Jacob rebuked his sons. Yeah, it wasn't clear if he rebuked his sons for enacting the death penalty or for doing something that was politically not felicitous. We have this idea that Rambam talks about how the whole town was basically deserving of the death penalty as accomplices to what was apparently a common practice of Shechem and the son. Who was the son? Shechem was the son. To take advantage of the local women. So that in that sense, how old would you say Dina was at the time? I don't think she was 3. I think the midrashim that say that she was like that young, also that Rivka was young when Yitzchak married her. I think those are talking about more of a childlike mindset rather than an actual chronological age. That's how I understand those midrashim. Who's this?
Okay, my
Araya,
first,
Darius, go for it.
my first question is from Miguel Rus, where we
Okay.
see the halakha on denying someone 3 times when they want to come into Yahadut. And my question is, why didn't Adonai, when he revealed the Torah in the 70 faces, give the nations 3 opportunities to join and cleave to Yahadut versus the one?
So first of all, there's a difference between denying someone 3 times and giving someone 3 opportunities, after they've rejected it. Also, I would point out that it's not la halacha to deny someone 3 times. That's just what Ruth did, what Naomi did with Ruth. It's not necessarily that is the halacha itself. Um, that's just a practice. And basically, so once we establish those 2 points, we understand that it was just a matter of rejection regarding the establishing a berit. The other nations just rejected the nations in the area, at least rejected the offer of becoming a representative nation, because it requires giving up a certain amount of free will. It requires giving up a certain amount of free agency when you make yourself an agent of someone else, right? So now you have to do what they say, right? You have to follow their instructions. You have to enact their will. You have a responsibility in that regard, rather than just doing whatever you want. And so what we find is that each of the different cultures, each of the different nations that rejected the opportunity to form a covenant with God, they had some kind of cultural conflict with the Torah. And so they had some value which precluded them, becoming full agents of the creator. That's a good question, though. All right,
Hey
what's your
Gil,
name?
could I
Yeah,
had a thought really quick on that?
sure.
One other thing that always gets missed in that example with Ruth and Naomi
Yeah,
is for the rabbis nowadays who start this very new kind of a reform practice to deny the potential convert 3 times, and they try to use Ruth as a proof for that. They seem to forget that Ruth was already a part of the people. She was already married to one of her sons,
yeah.
and
It's very
so
true.
it's like she's being turned away. But she says, "Your people are my people. Your God is my God." It's like, it's not like they will be at some future date. She's like reaffirming who she already was.
Would that be considered a Baal Shuvah?
Right,
Was who's
but
considered about teshuvah?
I don't know. I think that would be kind of anachronistic. But the whole point is that she was already part of the people.
Yeah, she was. Really, this whole thing of denying a potential ger 3 times goes against the halacha, because you're supposed to not discourage someone from gior. That's one of the things that I picked up in doing the chazara in preparation for tonight's class, is that basically you have this idea that you're supposed to not encourage someone to turn from a derech tova to a derech ra'ah, from a good path to a bad path. And if you do something that discourages someone from following through with the gior, then you're basically encouraging them. So it really says you're supposed to encourage people, use soft words, not intimidate, certainly not, reject, outright. It's a very odd thing to want to reject people who are potentially trying to draw, closer to God. It's just a very odd sociological phenomenon. It doesn't reflect halakha, certainly.
All right, my next question is around the pursuit in Shemot, Perek Vav, pursuit Lamed,
Okay.
where it speaks about Moshe Rabbeinu having what they would say a speech impediment or a stutter. But if you
Yeah.
could just let me know what was the lingua franca in Midian, and if that had some type of bearing on maybe a dialectical change in the way that Moshe spoke to Medaneter, or that this had some type of impact where he didn't feel comfortable going before part of O alone.
So I don't think he would. I see where you're getting at. I don't think the question was this a linguistic difference, because um, he didn't learn to speak in Midian. He learned to speak in Egypt. So he would have been very fluent in the Egyptian language, and it wouldn't have been there wouldn't have been a linguistic issue. The answer is they spoke some kind of southeastern Semitic, so it's related to Canaanite, but it was a little distant from. It's true, it was a little distant from Egyptian, but I don't think that the idea of there being a speech impediment for Moshe meant that it was a euphemism for he spoke a different language, because he definitely spoke Egyptian. He definitely was able to communicate, and that's why one of the reasons why one half of the reason why we see so much Egyptian translated into a Hebrew idiom in the Torah, right? It's full of Egyptian phrases and words that are just translated directly into Hebrew. And sometimes we even see the original Egyptian, like for example when it talks about like Safnat Paneach and this kind of stuff. So I don't think that being having a speech impediment meant that Moshe Rabbeinu just simply spoke a different language.
So why would Hashem choose him, Aharon, to be his mouthpiece? He grew up primarily with Miriam.
Why would Hashem choose Aaron to be the Nabi Moshe?
Nakum. That's when he actually grew up
The
more with Miriam. So if he had a speech impediment, wouldn't she have been more apt to understand him since he didn't really grow up with his brother too much?
That's a really great question. That's a question that shows a lot of thought given to the text. I really appreciate that question. Basically, I would suggest that Aaron had a special quality, that he was able to really connect with people on a social level, and he was really able to understand what people were saying and where they're coming from, in addition to being a prophet and Navi himself. So it was that he was simply the best communicator, and that's what made him the best. I think even in the Torah it says he likes to talk. But Aaron HaKohen was the best communicator, and that one made him the best selection to be Moshe's representative in the court of Paro. We have a question. Is it a way that the ger can draw to God as far as Torah? Meaning, do the Torah have stipulations on how the ger goyim can draw to God? Yeah, it's through basically through monotheism. Someone a non-Jew, you don't have to become Jewish. You become a monotheist, and you become you reject supremacism and all forms of idolatry, and that's how you, as a non-Jew, a goy, or not a goy, a nechar, would draw close to God. And are the Hebrew characters based on the Egyptian hieroglyphs? Not to my knowledge, although there's people who like to say there's some connection to them. Um, I don't believe they're based on the Egyptian hieroglyphs, although it's possible. It's definitely possible. Thank you for taking my. Yeah, if Araya Khilbad, feel free to ask any questions you like. Gam, you got questions for us?
Oh yeah. So Lag BaOmer, what's the deal with the bonfires?
What's the deal with the bonfires? That's a great question. I am going to. I have to open up my Wikipedia app because I just had looked up something. Yeah, so there's this thing called Beltane, which according to Wikipedia is the Gaelic May Day festival. It is traditionally held on the 1st of May, or about midway between the spring equinox and summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. It's observed throughout all the Celtic areas. It's also known as the first of summer. It marked the beginning of summer and was when cattle were driven out to the summer pastures. Special bonfires were kindled whose flames, smoke, and ashes were deemed to have protective powers. The people and their cattle would walk around or between bonfires and sometimes leap over the flames or embers. All household fires would be doused and relit from the Beltane bonfire. These gatherings would be accompanied by a feast, and some of the food and drink would be offered to the Aussie. I don't know what that is. Doors, windows, bars, and livestock will be decorated with yellow mayflowers, perhaps because they evoked fire. And you can just read it more on Wikipedia if you want to know more about what the practice of Beltane is. But that's an example of what we call the pagan element as it's made its way into Jewish practice.
So that's Host Lagoin.
I mean,
Black Sam says it's Avodah Zarah, which you
Oh,
already
uh,
somewhat
answered.
minhag shtut.
Avodah Zarah, right? So Minhag Shtut. Look, I mean, if you're doing it because you think it has protective powers, that's obviously
Avodah Zarah.
Chukat Goyim, Avodah Zarah. If you live in an area where that's a common practice of a way of serving the national deity, then it's Avodah Zarah. If you just like bonfires and you want to roast some marshmallows, I'm hard pressed to see how that's a problem.
So would you say the modern Jewish practice falls under Host Lagoim, or is it just, oh, this is just how we decide to do this?
I think it falls somewhere between those two options for most people. I think a lot of people have a lot of different interests in these bonfires and in celebrating Lag BaOmer. There's a lot of mythology around it, a lot of historical mistakes. Um, Whether people really invest these bonfires with real magical powers, I don't know. If they're doing so, they're definitely approaching it with an Avodah Zarah mentality. But if people are just enjoying the social aspect and using the opportunity to increase their Yirat Shamayim, their awe of heaven, I think that's a good thing. So I'm generally, me, like I generally look for how can we permit. So I'm not going to be
Right.
here waging the Inquisition against the Beltane fires.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so why do people mourn during Pesach and Shavuot?
That's a good question. So, why do people mourn between Pesach and Shavuot? Because it says in the Gemara that Rabbi Akiva's students died. They passed away either due to a political persecution or, it says a plague. And so it's generally believed to be during these weeks. And so I think, personally, mistakenly, a period of mourning is observed. But really, you shouldn't mourn, obviously, during Moed itself, right? And the Omer starts during the Moed, right? It starts right after the first day of Pesach. So it's still Moed and we're mourning, right? So that doesn't make any sense. So I don't personally observe it. I don't, so I don't appear too different. I'm not like makpid. I'm not particular to cut my hair or to do it. I let it grow out a little, but I'm also not afraid to shave if it's getting too unruly or, whatever the case may be. I certainly listen to music. Um, all right, we have some answers about the hieroglyphs and the Hebrew. Oh, thank you so much, Rav Gabriel, for sharing his wisdom, his learning in the chat. Everyone should check out his responses in the chat to Arai's questions. Gam, what else you got in your mind?
Can a convert, once he, or can a person that becomes Jewish, once they become Jewish, if they get the right education, is it possible to convert other converts in the future?
So I'll be honest with you. I thought when I first saw this question, I thought the answer was no, and I'm still pretty sure the answer is no, but I can't find the halacha that says so. Understanding again that convert's the wrong word here. We're talking about gerim. I couldn't find that mentioned in the Hilchot Gerut that we find in Gior in the Mishneh Torah, and I could have sworn something about a Beit Din of Gerim being an issue, but
There's
I
about
looked it up. Pardon?
there's halachot about it, but it's referring to them serving on a beit din with actual semicha, and they're not allowed to serve on a beit din to do for for matters of litigation.
I mean, I'm not again. I didn't see that, and I'm not sure. Like, I know you can't appoint Gerim to positions of like authority. That is Bashut, but I thought by you couldn't have Gerim serving on Batei Din for Gior. That said, I couldn't find that halakha. So, it's definitely something I encourage you to do your own research in, to look into the halachot of Gior, which are in Hilchot Isurei Biyah in the Mishneh Torah. Some of these are things that people made up. Yeah, the only thing is I'm pretty sure I saw it somewhere. Like Black Sam says that this is just made up, but I'm pretty sure I saw it somewhere. I just I can't see. I'm being honest with you. I can't remember where, and I can't find the source again. The issue would be just are people coming in en masse, kind of to disrupt the ideational fabric of the community. But once we hit upon that keyword community, the issue really just goes away in general. I mean, the framework for Gior, for proper Gior, is people joining a community. So whether it's previous Gerim who are helping them join that community, like join that particular community, or whether it's people who are born Jewish, it really doesn't matter as long as people are joining a community. So, I, can a gear do it? I don't think I wouldn't look to, I wouldn't be personally investigating, the background of, if someone says they did it through legitimate court, they did it through legitimate court, as far as I'm concerned. That said, I think there is a halacha against it. Couldn't find it. So again, do your research. If you want to know where to look to start, you can start with Hilchot Isurei Biyah. I think it's the 13th chapter, so it's like 13, 14, 15, or 12, 13, 14, something like that. Yeah, I think I
Okay.
have it open still. Let me just check right here.
I
Yeah,
know
hold on.
Yosef, he had made it. Someone sent me a video about it. That Yosef had done it. Um, had done about it, and it was basically what Nathaniel said. I haven't watched the whole video because I got it. Whatever. But yeah. So I will. I'll send that to you, and
Sure.
maybe that'll jog your memory.
Yeah, maybe something he'll say in there will pop in.
Um. Okay, I just put it in the chat. The
Cool.
next question is. So we hear a lot, especially on here, in discussing things with people that have read parts of the Gemara or have been on the anti-Semitic websites about the Gemara. about Jesus boiling in excrement,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
so it's. Can you explain what that passage of the Gemara is about?
Yeah, I'll explain it to you on a bunch of different levels.
Okay.
First of all, if I just presented that to you as a metaphor, what would you construe that metaphor to mean?
That Jesus wasn't too much of a good guy for the people, the writers of the Talmud.
Well, especially if he's boiling in his own poop, right?
So it's
Uh,
his teachings might have come back against him.
yeah. So I mean that's what it's evocative of. I looked it up, and there's an interesting take from the Rav Yosef Karo, Zichrono Livracha, in the Magid Mesharim, where he basically says that the level of excrement is the level of existence in which things are just excrement. And I'll tell you, I actually once had a thought about this. I was thinking that on a biological level, right, all animals, but even just all people, are just eating and pooping machines. Do you ever think about that? Like it's a
Actually,
little
yes.
right? It's a little humbling in a way. That's our ecological function. That on a certain level, we just eat and we poop, and that's our contribution. That's what the world really needs of us, right? But if you take that too far, it becomes a little nihilistic, right? And if you just get consumed with this world, that's basically what you're getting consumed with. You're getting consumed with the eating and the pooping. And so, really, the Rav Karo is saying in the Magid Mesharim that there's this level of existence where everything is just poop, and he says that it's all the stuff that's not used by everything else, that we're like, it's the level of existence where it's just completely useless to everybody. And so what we see in the Gemara, according to this read from the Magid Mesharim, what we see in this Gemara is a strong polemic against at least the teachings of the Yeshu, that's a character in the Talmudic narratives, and basically saying that after his death, he really only exists in the most useless level of reality, where nothing derives any benefit from him. So that's Magid Mesharim. Now, the Maharal of Prague, right, takes a different approach, related but different, and says that basically excrement is the polar opposite of wisdom and refinement, in that the punishment in the rabbinic value system, the punishment of spending eternity boiling in excrement, which is just such a ridiculous image if you think about it, right? So that punishment is reserved for someone who mocks the words of the sages, right? Really just has this, a chip on the shoulder and is always going after the words of the sages. Um, and so we see that the Maharal of Prague picks up on that and basically is saying that someone who's basically opposed to wisdom, someone who has this agenda of mocking wisdom, they're basically they make their life devoted to what is the opposite of wisdom, by hook or crook, eventually, ultimately. And so that's how the Maharal of Prague understands, what's the symbolism here of excrement. So I don't think it's hyperbole. Someone in the WhatsApp group suggested it was hyperbole. I don't think it's hyperbole, although it certainly is hyperbolic. But I think that it's just more of a symbol, whether we go with, for that which is useless or that which is the polar opposite of wisdom, or your own take on, what does excrement signify in the big scheme of things. But that's really what we're saying here is the punishment associated with the Talmudic character of Yeshu.
Excellent answer. appreciate that.
It
For
was me,
sure.
Gil, that said that. I believe I used the word hyperbolic or hyperbole, one or the other.
I mean, it's an extreme image, that's for sure. You know, it certainly is an image that just grabs you, and
It's
you're
very
like,
graphic.
wow,
It's
I don't
almost
want
like
that.
something saying in America where people are like, "Yeah, there's a special place in hell for that person." That's kind of the other angle that I kind of
Yeah, there's
interpret.
a special place in hell, and it's boiling in excrement. That's what that place is. So not to leave it to the imagination, we just got to fill that in. Yeah,
Yeah.
look, if you read the Talmud, you read all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's one of, to me, the beautiful things of it. It's one of the exotic aspects of it. You know, there's a certain cultural gap when we're trying to approach the vocabulary in the world of the characters in the Talmud, and you know, sometimes we come across some pretty radical images, like
I think that
boiling in
it
excrement.
also appears on the nose that that particular explanation or statement, you can't really avoid the fact that they have a strong disdain for him as an individual, and to connect that, I mean, that's just what I kind of see in it. There's a very strong
Yeah,
dislike there.
Blackstem is also picking up on that. He's saying it's just to piss off Christians. I mean, it's definitely a polemical statement. You know, it's definitely highlighting a sore spot. You know, and there's a bone to pick there. And you know, it's also kind of unnecessary in the sense that the greater sugya in which that appears isn't describing a conflict between Christians and rabbinic Jews. It's just kind of thrown in there. Um, and so basically, they burnt all of these. Someone asked, they burnt all these Talmud pages in England. No, they burnt some of them in some countries, or they censored them. Really, they didn't really burn them; they just censored them. But yeah, there was these were excessively polemical parts in the Talmud. Certainly didn't play well in Christendom. You know, people didn't react nicely to the idea of Jesus or someone sharing the name of Jesus, boiling in excrement. And it led to historical issues, definitely led to historical conflicts. So that's my answer to that question. Next question.
Okay, I think this is my last one. I kind of want to ask you about censorship in the Gemara, but I'll save that for next week. Um,
No, you could ask anything. We started it early enough that we have time, so I wanted to just get instead of it running over, I wanted to run it early.
okay, so because I remember Hakam Haleva had told me that there were Jews who have became apostates that actually began to publish, I think, the Gemara, and so they had censored the text um, on purpose. And I know I've
Yeah,
read Tom Ford write a lot of his writings. He talks about the censored and or doctor text of the Gemara.
yeah,
So I still have to say, so is there a way to get uncensored text and or the text that we have? Is it enough to not for that to not really be an issue?
yeah. I mean, the primary way to get an uncensored text of the Gemara is to get it from a Chacham or a Talmid of the Chachamim who's learned it from the Chachamim, etc., etc. That's obviously the gold standard, and that's what we have most predominantly in the Yemeni, Syrian, and Moroccan, I believe, communities. We still have that with that by the Moroccans. So you got that. Next up is you get a critical edition based on the manuscripts, and that you can also get online. You can compare manuscript editions online. I forget the exact URL, but it's definitely findable. Um, so that's the second thing. That's actually more accessible, I think, to most people because most people don't have access to scholars from the previously mentioned communities. Um, and then, you know, at a certain point, you have to kind of work your way. You could do textual reconstruction, where we basically say, okay, here are commentaries who we believe are quoting accurately, different sugyot in the Gemara. How do they understand it? What must those sugyot have said? That's obviously the least preferable method because that's involves a lot of speculation. So again, to recap, so the primary ways from Chachamim, who learned it from Chachamim, then we do manuscript research, and then we try to do conceptually driven literary reconstruction.
Excellent. Last question. So I was in a group, and there was a Sephardic Jew who posted like something about a concert that a woman had done, and a Sephardic rabbi was asked him a question about like how is it something along the lines of like how is it permissible under the halakha of bat kol, and he got a lot of pushback saying, well, Sephardim don't hold that bat kol as you can't actually listen to a woman sing.
Well,
So what
do you
is
mean bat kol or kol isha?
you're right, kol isha. I mixed up my terms. Um, that's definitely not the right one. But yeah, kol isha. So
Okay.
can you explain what is Kol Isha? Can you go to concerts?
Yeah, sure. So kol isha roahi is a statement found in the Gemara, but it's not meant as a halachic prohibition about listening to the voice of a woman. It's a reference to the personal boundary that's to be respected between a person and a woman. That's really what that's referring to. It's not referring to this idea that women singing is a problem. You're not supposed to do things which encourage you to be overly hormonal. That's a separate thing, but that's not particular to listening to a woman's voice. That's just don't do things that make you excessively hormonal. So that's a separate thing. But people have in the modern day turned it into a really big thing. Same thing with Shomer Nagia, which also is not a halachic concept that became a halachic concept over time.
What is Shomer Nagia?
People believe you can't touch. You can't touch members of the opposite sex or gender.
Okay. I have one question. So I was
Sure,
reading in the
go for it.
Drash on Paro, and it showed that obviously we know that he didn't drown in the Red Sea, but it showed that in the Midrash that he became the king of Nineveh. How is that even
Yeah,
possible? And that Yonah was the Navi that went there. Like he should have been long dead by then.
right. So we could understand it literally, and this guy was just a very long-lived individual. It happens,
But was he like a descendant of Paro? Like
Or we could understand it as like it's kind of like a reincarnation in the sense that like this is a recurring character, recurring character type.
okay.
Yeah, there's very straightforward ways to understand these kinds of midrashim.
Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? Anyone in the audience wanna? Araya, you had some good questions before the scattered something. I can't read the rest of your name. You're also welcome.
Did
Gum, did he
Nathaniel
ask
get
you a
all of his
question
questions
about
and Darius?
the pedo thing?
What question? What was that, Gam? What question was this?
I
Gum had a
said,
question about the pedo thing earlier this week. Sorry for being so crude.
You want to ask it, Gam?
did Nathaniel and Darius get all their questions out of the chat?
I did not get all of mine.
Oh, Darius, where are you then, man? I'm here
I have
calling for
been
questions.
I've been working, man. I've been trying to come in and out of help customers and trying
You're
to
doing the
listen in
Lord's
to the
work.
Q&A.
Yeah. And
But
I was also letting
But,
Dom go with his question.
but
right. The scam did start going.
Darius,
So
go for it.
okay. So my next question is, according to Wayikra Perek Yohet, Pesuk Kaf, it states that mankind should not lie with womankind as it lies. Mankind should not lie with mankind as it lies with womankind, and this is an abomination. But according to Haram Bam, any man who is found guilty of this act with a individual under 9 years old would be relieved, or I guess you could say would not be found guilty.
Of that particular, of Mishkav Zachor.
hmm
Mishkav
So I'm
Zachar.
trying to figure out
Yeah.
why would that be the case? Because the pasuk doesn't say ish or naar; it says zakar, which would be a male. So any male, any
Well, it says
age.
Mishkav Zachar, which is a term that has like a particular meaning. Mishkav Zachar is like it's a term that refers to a very particular way in a very particular context.
So it would be okay for it's kind of like saying that there's no halakha prohibition in pedophilia. I'm trying to see where am I
No,
missing.
there is a halachic prohibition on pedophilia. It just doesn't also fit the prohibition of Mishkav Zachar, which someone asks, can it refer to lies to rather than with, implying that it's not a prohibition against homosexuality rather than rape? It's definitely not a prohibition against homosexuality. I don't think it's referring to rape. It's referring to uh,
Consensual line.
it is referring to consensual. Whether it's referring to in a cultic context or not is the question. Because how does this fit into the context of the other arayot, right? The other forbidden relationships, and why is this all in Parashat Kedoshim and Rach Remot, and why do we read it on Yom Kippurim? And so there's a lot of reasons to consider that this is referring to a cultic context, which the parallel text in Devarim also is referring to a cultic context. So that's why I don't think you could understand how someone who's a minor would not be in the definition, the legal definition of the term.
Because of non-age of consent.
In non-age of consent, that's also just not what the verse was referring to as understood legally.
I can see that.
Yeah, like these terms have the terms in the Tanakh are defined, and for when it comes to halacha, are defined legally rather than how you or I might read them. Like when it says an eye for an eye, you or I might read that as like literal, retributive justice, but legally it's understood as compensation, right? So that's a classic example of how we understand things, in a very specific sense legally. We exclude certain people, certain acts, we include others, that might not match our straightforward reading of the verse.
Okay. My next question is around. I don't know the correct term. I guess it would be either a Diane or a Shofet.
Okay.
Pretty much an individual who would make a halakhic ruling or change how the community observes a halakhic ruling. But I was
Okay.
listening to Jose A. Faor. He was talking about the udder of a cow, and
He's
he was
talking
talking
about the
about
what?
the udder of a cow, like
Okay.
the udder.
Yeah, the udder. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Give me one second. Okay,
You with us, Darius?
I am.
Okay, no problem.
hey, Darius, you want me to read your question?
Please do it. You can mute me if need
Okay.
be.
Okay.
So the question says, is the udder of a cow being prohibited as a posek communally? Is it a loophole in halacha where the udder is seen to be kasher based on preparation?
I didn't understand this question.
I don't.
What is the idea that the udder is prohibited?
I'm not sure. I don't know what he means.
Yeah, it's actually the opposite. That you can eat the udder of a cow with the milk that's in it. So yeah,
Um.
so the udder. It's an interesting thing that you can actually have like a cheeseburger if the milk for the cheese is made from the milk that's in the udder. Darius, you
Um.
got all that?
Hold on. I don't know if y'all can hear me or not. Probably can't.
Darius, where do you work?
Here you go.
He works at like a
Thank
health
you.
food store.
No problem.
Like a what?
A health food store.
And they make you listen to that music all day long?
Hold on, hey. He's
So you
torturing me.
can hear me.
Yeah, we hear that music.
Sorry about the music. But yeah, so there was,
No,
I can't think of the exact rabbi, but in his community, the people would take the cow udders and throw them outside of the community and say that they weren't allowed to be eaten based on his ruling.
oh, so that rabbi made a ruling for his community. You're saying, so that's a different situation. If the rabbi wants to make that ruling for the community, it's up to the community to decide if they want to accept it. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of thing where there's a communal prerogative. What are the norms that a community can establish for itself? And so, given that that prerogative exists, if a community wants to prohibit for itself, the udder, okay, we'll see how the members of the community stand in it. That's how it works for local prohibitions. That's how it works for national prohibitions. That's how the rabbinic legal system works. It's all based ultimately on popular adoption and consent.
Okay. Because I knew it was kosher because it came from cow, but they were they were basically insinuating like it was not something that you should eat. So I was
Right.
confused, like
Yeah,
why that
that's
rabbi had the authority to do
yeah, it's just locally derived authority, and it's up to the community to decide how long that authority exists.
that. Okay. Damn, if you could read my other question, if I have another one there, that'd be great.
I have a question on wine. If I couldn't hear clearly if the question was over with, just from the background. My bad.
Yeah,
Everybody else was done with their question.
yeah, go for it, Nintano.
All right, yeah. So I was recently learning about the concept of yain nesech and satam yanam, the biblical prohibition against yain nesech and the rabbinic prohibition of satam yanam.
Yeah,
And it was dealing with the Teshubah of Hacham Yosef Meshas, where I think some people have mistakenly concluded that he was saying that you can drink wine without any kind of heksher, any supervision, because
right,
nowadays there's no setam yanam, there's no yain nesech. I don't think that's what he was saying from what I went through as far as the sources on it. It sounds like he was saying any derivatives of setam yanam you can drink
right,
without a heksher.
right.
But this other Hakam Gigi, who he was in correspondence with, sounds like he was saying that you could technically drink wine without heksher, because there's really no avodah zarah in the sense that it was prohibited biblically, and satam yanam, the prohibition was more so about like intermarriage, preventing intermarriage. But when you go to a grocery store, you go to a factory place where they're making wine, the people aren't really doing avodah zarah there, and you're not going to marry anybody when you go to a store to buy a bottle of wine. And so,
Yeah,
anyway, the halakha lema'aseh, in your opinion, and just based on any research you've done, would you say if you lived in a place where they had factory produced wine at a commercial store, you go and buy a bottle of wine, is it against the gezerah to buy that wine without a hechsher?
That's a fantastic question, and as you posed it, it's a very good question. I'll put it to you this way. I'm not familiar with Rev Gigi's opinion, but there's a certain logic to it, right? Because first of all, we can dispense with the idea that if someone's not Obed Avodah Zarah, then Sitam Yinam doesn't apply because Rambam in the halachot of Nesech and Ma'achalot Asurot, Rambam refers to the Muslims who obviously are not over the Avodah Zarah in his opinion, and he says Sitam Yinam applies to them, right? So Rav Gigi in his first part, he's going, with the Tosafist, with this idea that Sitam Yinam, only applies, if it's true, Avodah Zarah, yada, yada, yada. Okay. But that second point that Rav Gigi brings up, that's pretty powerful, right? Now, if we're talking about the economic conditions changing, it's not that the tam for the gezerah no longer applies. It's that the conditions of the gezerah no longer apply, right? We're not having a sense where someone is personally, dispensing you wine from bottling wine from a big barrel for you, and that's how you're getting your wine. You're going to the store. It's impersonal. It's depersonalized. It's very commercialized. It's very modern. Post-industrial, right? So in that sense, do we really have the conditions of the original Gezerah? And in that sense, I think you can make a cogent argument that we don't have the conditions of the original Gezerah, at least in most liquor stores, and so therefore having this mass-produced, factory-produced wine that's then bottled and sold across the world isn't the subject of the original Gezerah, and that's taking a completely different approach. And that's has nothing to do with whether the goyim are over the Avodah Zarah or not. It's not even getting into that. That's having to do with economic changes. So I think that's a much stronger argument to permit wine without a hechsher. Personally, I drink wine with a hechsher, but now you've got me thinking. Maybe I'll change my practice. I don't know. I'd have to really, if you could maybe put in the chat or forward something about the link. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Thank you for the response.
For sure. Any other questions, guys? Darius, what was your question on Pirkei Avot?
I can read it to you. I don't quite understand it, but
Okay.
maybe you can. You're smarter than me. In Sefer Pirkei Avot, can you explain the significance of the use of the number 10 or Yud in Torah to establish the foundation of the methodology of Adonai's Mishpat and Berachot? And he says,
Yes.
Perek Hey.
Yeah. So the if you look at the fifth chapter of Pirkei Avot, you see the number 10 is prominent in the first bunch of Mishnayot. And so somehow 10 implies full activation and balance, right? So you've got two balanced arrays of 5, and for some reason that had the decimal system had a lot of significance on a mystical level and on a theological level in the minds of the Eastern Mediterraneans. We see it with Pythagoras, right? We see it with all kinds of people. So that's my best explanation for that, is that what we see in the Mishnah Avot, fifth chapter, is this idea of the full force coming out here, and then being limited. Right? It's really the narrative is one of just restraint, and so it's in some ways maybe. Hold on one second. In some ways, maybe it's a response to Christianity, which is an idea that we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks about how some of the Mishnayot in Masachat Abot might be responding to Christian ideas. So maybe the idea of the limited God's limited power on the cross is being responded to with God's limited power in creation, and we see the idea of reward and punishment also playing out in those Mishnayot as well. So there's probably a lot more to be said about the number 10. Obviously, for those who are Kabbalistically inclined, you have the Sefirot and all that kind of stuff. But that's my basic thought is that it's the full divine force, on display in right there, and yet what we see in the Mishnayot is that it's the full divine force, limited and constrained, held back.
I'd like to share
Laz,
something on that if it's
yeah,
okay.
sure,
So
sure,
I
please.
also, I the Yud always kind of reminded me of the first couple lines of Bereshit when it talks about Hashem floating over the waters before anything really happened.
How so?
I don't know. It just the idea of this letter kind of being suspended in the air, and I might be wrong about this, but it seems like it's the only one of the only letters in the Hebrew language that is not grounded.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, in
Yeah.
the Aramaean script,
Yeah.
it's floating. So yeah, go dating back to the Persian period when we started using that. We have this floating script. Yeah, no, that's a nice derasha into the yod. It's this hovering aspect of it, the ruach Elohim, and we know that Elohim obviously is a reference to all these divine powers that we're talking about. So it's very good. I like it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, guys?
I think that's did Nathaniel get his question about Yevamos?
That was, yeah, I got it earlier. It's on the replay.
Okay.
I do have one
Nice.
last question on last week's
Yeah.
parasha of Parashat Emor, where there's a mitzvah. It says that the Israelites should dwell in booths for 7 days, but the language it uses in the pasuk is ke'ezrach be'Yisrael. And that's, to me, when I first read it on the surface, it sounded very particular to the Ezrach, the native born, and it didn't include the ger. Um, but I did subsequently read some commentaries that clarified it for me. But I was just curious if you ever had any thoughts on the Ke'ezrach Be'Yisrael, and is that one phrase Ke'ezrach Be'Yisrael, or is that two phrases Ke'ezrach Be'Yisrael?
Where is the citation again? I'm gonna
Uh,
open up Safaria.
Hold on, it's Parashat Emor. Hold on, let me find it real quick. It's 20. I think it's 23. Hold on, I'll find it quickly because it's in the last here it is. 23 pasuk 23 pasuk 42 basukot teshvu shivaat yamim kol ha'ezrach beYisrael yeshvu basukot.
Wait, so what was the chapter verse again? My connection dropped when you said it.
uh
What's the chapter verse, real quick?
23 pasuk 42. Yeah.
Netanel.
uh can you hear me?
Netanel. What's the chapter
Hear
verse?
me?
We lost
Can you hear me?
Netanel. There was an error. Please try again.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Gil, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear
Okay,
me
I
now?
can hear Netanel.
Yeah, now I can hear Netanel again.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
verse 23, pasuk 42. Basukot teshvu
23.
teshvu shivat yamim kol ha'ezrach beYisrael yeshvu basukot.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. בסוכות תשבו שבעת ימים כל האזרח בישראל ישבו בסוכות. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. That does seem to be excluding the ger. Let's see what Aben Ezra says. Always go first to Aben Ezra.
Could you
Right?
repeat that for the recording?
What, to
Yeah,
always go first to Ibn Ezra?
yeah, maybe one more time.
always go first to Ibn Ezra, but here actually Ibn Ezra has nothing to say on this pasuk. So next we're going to go see, what else do we have? We have, there's not a lot on the pasuk. There's not a lot on the pasuk. Okay, so not a lot of people are picking up on this, first of all. Let's see what Malbim says. Malbim's a good guy. Okay, but go to Jewish on the Shiva, not the Jewish Shiva Demim. Alright, Yeshu, okay. Okay, that doesn't tell us anything. No. Okay, no, that's a strikeout. So we don't have anything from there. So what we do have is Rashi stepping in. Rashi stepping in. Here you go. Ezrach ze Ezrach b'Yisrael rabot et agirim. Based on the Sifra Emor chapter 17:9. So let's go to Sifra Emor 17:9. So you're going to remember that, guys. 17:9 Sifra Emor. We want Midrash, Midrash Halacha, Sifra. What do we say? 17:9. Is that right, guys?
I thought you said
Bueller?
12.
Oh no, now you're confusing me. I'm pretty sure I
It's
said
either
9.
17:9 or 17:12.
Hold on. And more.
Yeah,
So
it's
chapter
17:9.
17.
Hey Gil, real quickly. Basically, when I read the pasuk, I had the thought: Did anybody ever say in the Gemara or in the Halacha that the mitzvah to dwell in booths, the oraita is for the native born, but the rabbanan is for the ger?
Well, that's what we're saying right now.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
saying here's the drasha on the Sifra.
okay, go ahead.
Ezrach ze Ezrach. Ha Ezrach להוציא את הנשים. כל האזרח לרבות את הקטנים. בישראל לרבות גרים ועבדים משוחררים. Right? So here we have a drasha that really parses it out. Ezrach means Ezrach. Ha-Ezrach, right, is actually to exclude women. Kol ha-Ezrach, but to include minors. Be-Yisrael, to include gerim and freed slaves. So there you
Interesting.
Oh,
have. This is the source of. I guess originally before this, right? What does this imply, guys? Who wants to tell me what this implies?
That women don't have an obligation to dwell in booths.
No, that's what it says. But what does it imply?
Uh, there's multiple meanings to one word or two words.
That's its premise. But what does it imply?
Uh,
read it again.
Okay, Ezrach, ze Ezrach. Ha-Ezrach, להוציא את הנשים. כל האזרח, לרבות את הקטנים. בישראל לרבות גרים ועבדים משוחררים.
Is it possible to get an English?
What does it imply?
Citizen, this means citizen. The citizen, to exclude the women. Every citizen, to include the minors. In Israel, to include immigrants and freed slaves.
Is this implying that there are steps to this? Like, if you're in certain situations, this is what you do?
No.
Okay.
Black Sam says
The,
that
it,
they're all Ezrachim.
what does this mean here, guys? It means that before this drasha was made in the court, this wasn't the law. That's the implication. The implication here is that at a certain point, it was only Ezrachim. It didn't include Gerim and Avadim Meshoharim. That's an example of a din mufla, as Rav Faor Zichron
Oh,
Lebracha picks up with Rambam. That these are dinim muflaim that are being established by this drasha. So the implication here is that beforehand, women were included, minors were excluded, and Gerim and Avadim Meshoharim were excluded.
So this is like what you were talking about last week about like the Taryag mitzvot, how the court defines what this stuff means.
Right. So in that case, we were talking about the whole system of 613. This is the specific dinim of the mitzvah of sitting in a sukkah. These are defined. This is an example of how the particular dinim are defined by the court.
And you read this from the Sifra?
This is Sifra Emor, chapter 17, unit 9.
Okay. So that.
Gladly.
Asael asked what. Wait, Antonio, were you done with your question?
Not only was I done, but I'm so glad you were able to read the Sifra on it. That was kind of what I read in the Humash, but it was basically a summary of the Sifra quoted by Rashi, and it didn't go into the implications like you just brought out. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's the benefit of looking up Rashi sources.
I wouldn't say don't look at Rashi. I mean, if you have a Chokle Israel, it starts with Rashi. So I just think
Well, so
Ibn Ezra
yeah.
great source to learn the Hebrew grammar, which is a big part of understanding quote unquote Peshat.
Well, I mean, with Ibn Ezra, you're not just getting the Peshat, you're getting a worldview, and you're getting a worldview in Torah, and that's something that I like. One of the things that blows my mind on a very basic level with Ibn Ezra is that he entertains that for him Peshat can be multiple things. It's not a certain thing. He has this whole idea of multiple Peshatim. And for Rashi, Peshat, if and when he discusses Peshat, which is not most of his commentary, right, he's discussing a very monolithic Peshat. For Ibn Ezra, it's polythic, right? It's multisemous, right? For it's polysemous. For Rashi, it's just this is how you understand it. And so the worldview that you learn when you learn Ibn Ezra is not just, here's how to understand something linguistically or grammatically or what have you, but it's how to understand the Andalusian approach to, multiple meanings and diversity in interpretation and the inherent ambiguity in the text. Those are all part of how the Andalusians, which Ibn Ezra represented, that's all part of how they understood Torah.
Nimavin. Toda.
Asael has a question. He says, "How do you understand Numbers 7 and 89?"
Hold up, let's get that in Safaria. I'm just trying, my app is slow, so Tanakh, we're going to go to Numbers, we're going to go to 7, can't be 89.
Yeah, it's that many Pesukim in there. It's a lot. It's the last one.
Really? Really? My
Yeah.
lord. Okay, so ובבוא משה אלוה אל מועד לדבר איתו וישמע את הקול מדבר אליו מעל הכפורת אשר על ארון העדות מבין שני הכרובים וידבר אליו. Interesting. So the question is, how do I understand it? So when Moshe Rabbeinu would go to the Kodesh, right, he would actually hear a voice speaking to him, uh, located above the Aron, between the two statues of the Kerubim. That's how I understand it. Asel, you wanna? Oh, we have a question. Oh, raised hands. Here, let me see if I can add you.
I brought him up.
All right. Hey,
Shalom,
Asel. Shalom
shalom.
ubracha.
How y'all doing?
Baruch
Long
Hashem.
and
I can't
safe.
complain.
Good. I was asking about the verb me daber in particular. I understand, yeah, like the translation you put out was, accurate. But how do you understand the verb me daber? And then once you tell me how you understand it, how would you try to like illustrate this picture for somebody, you know, to make them understand what exactly was going on in this setting, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. How do I explain this?
Yeah, like what verse?
It's like midaber. Hold on. I want to check
Yeah, like
if
Hey, Gil,
I'm
you
right.
should look at
Yeah.
Ibn Ezra.
Yeah. I'm just going to check that out because I want to see if I'm right that it's hitpael.
It's a machloket. He says it's an infinitive, but he says all the other grammarians say it's a
yeah,
hitpael.
it's a hit payel.
The question is שם הפועל כמו הנה לא ידעתי דבר המם תחת מן למשפט הלשון. So in this case, he's saying it's like milidaber,
Mm-hmm. It's a
as
double,
opposed to mitdaber, it's milidaber.
mm,
Mitdaber, milidaber. Interesting.
which is a doubling, which will make it a hit feel reflexive.
No, that would just be the PL normal infinitive.
Mm.
It'd be like ledaber,
I
mi
disagree.
ledaber.
If it was a peel, then we wouldn't have a dagish inside the
You
dalet.
would because he's saying the lamed is swallowed. And both according to the Medaktikim and according to Ibn Ezra, letter is being swallowed. According to Medaktikim, it's tet. According or tau, but it becomes a tet when it's the dalet is the shorish.
What?
But according to Ibn Ezra, he's talking about it that it's it's the infinitive for lidaber, which is lashon pl.
So how if it's an infinitive, which would usually indicate that a lamid is supposed to be there, not a mem, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
So why would the mem be
It's
there?
no the mem he's saying is from the word min, like from. But he's saying the dagesh you asked why is there a dagesh in Dalid, and the
Oh, so
dagesh in
oh
Dalid is because the lamed is there.
so they're saying that the mem is the preposition, like from. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I see what they did there. I disagree with,
yeah.
but I I see what they did there. But
Well, Ibn Ezra is very disagreeable. That's why he's Ibn Ezra because he disagrees with everybody. Here, all the Mekdat say one thing, and he says the other thing.
yeah. So if
Uh,
he was to look at this as a reflexive,
no,
but
they want to look at it as reflexive. He's looking at it as intense.
I, I
He's
I I understand that. I'm saying if we did look at it as a reflexive, uh,
yeah.
how would we paint this picture here? Because
So
to me,
there's a voice emanating to him from that location. Like when you close your eyes and you hear someone speak, and like you can sense where spatially they are in relation to you. So in relation to Moshe Rabbeinu, there was this. It's a voice, a sound emanating from a specific place.
so it wouldn't mean like speaking to itself, like he heard
No,
a voice.
mitaber reflexive doesn't mean necessarily that it's discursively reflexive. It just means that it is generatively reflexive. So in this case, it's the fact that the voice is this is how in biblical Hebrew you would describe something that's emanating out of nowhere,
Okay,
right? Because you can't say that there's a speaker. So it can't be the voice of someone medaber ela, right? It's the voice of something speaking to him,
okay, all right,
right? and so basically Ibn Ezra is saying the same thing. He's just he's just saying that this wouldn't be. Maybe he has something against Hitpael. No, because there's definitely
Yeah,
cases where it's in the
I
psukim.
just disagree with it because if this was the preposition mean, like from, then that wouldn't necessarily be the lamet being assimilated inside the dagish. It would be the noon.
No, because you have the noon dropping off anyway. You have this idea of mi ze.
Why would it drop off if dalit is not a guttural? Because if dalit was, if we have like a guttural there, then yeah, it would drop off, would get canceled, and then it would make the mem.
Look.
Uh,
Just
uh,
look
uh,
in the same
there.
pasuk. Mi bain.
Where's that? Where,
The same pasuk. Just a few words down.
yeah, like that's what I said. It's assimilated inside the
No,
bet.
the bet. The. Oh, you're saying that's why it's not mi vain?
Right, because if bet was a guttural, then
No,
the
you.
if then the
y-
mem it would extend to a tazer, not
No,
a.
it's gotta take a dagesh because it's starting a syllable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is. You're showing me places where it is taking the
No,
noon.
that it's not. It's not taking the noon. It's starting a syllable. It's mibbain.
So it's not. So okay. So the dagish is not for the from the noon.
No, I'm trying to find you another example of where you have that.
All right.
Um, um, I'm just scrolling through the psukim right now. That's what I'm doing. Um,
We trying to find an
in
example.
Hebrew, in contemporary Hebrew, we use it all the time. They don't say min in contemporary Hebrew. We
But
say mize or mize.
you get what I'm trying to say. If it was like a
No,
guttural.
because I'm trying to say is that even here's an example. If you go to Numbers 8:11,
Wait, hold on. All right.
here you have the word me'et,
Right.
right, which is min et.
Right. This is what I'm saying here. So this is what I'm
But
saying.
there's no nun being swallowed. It's just this is
Right.
how.
That's what
Oh,
I'm saying.
here's another example. Well, mitoch, you're gonna find all of the examples. It's
But that's but that's exactly,
the
yeah. The instance you just showed me in Numbers 8 and 11. This is what I'm saying. If the root radical one is a guttural like an olive here, then the noon wouldn't get assimilated inside the olive, right? It will get canceled, and then it would make the hidri a tazer. So it would cancel that.
no.
Yeah, that's
It,
exactly.
look at verse 14. Mitoch.
So
Uh,
why don't we have a hidri under the mem and me'eth?
because no, that's why we don't have a chirik. But that's not why there's that. That's not what's happening. The noon. There's no noon being swallowed.
No, I didn't say it is being swallowed. I said it's not being swallowed because you have a guttural olive there, so it can't take a dagish ingemination. That's what I'm saying.
No, but then I would just say no. All right. So forget me'et. Look at verse 16. Mitoch. Um, I'm just scrolling through the psukim here.
Yeah, exactly.
Look,
Me.
if look, I don't know how to tell you this other than just to tell you that this is what happens when it's used as a prefix.
Yeah, and then you have
It's not the nun.
mhm.
The the dalid. In this case, what Ebenezer is saying, just to tie it all back to what Ebenezer is saying, the dalit is dagusha because of the lamed that's missing, not because the noon.
Yeah,
It's just his opinion. I mean, he's
I,
a world class grammarian. Just keep in mind that as you disagree with him, he did know Hebrew far better than you did. Just
I
keep
know
that in mind.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah. Just which is it's okay to disagree with him. I disagree with
Yeah,
him on
that's
things also,
yeah,
and he
that's
knew
fine.
Hebrew far better than I know Hebrew. But
Yeah,
I'm just pointing out that when we're reading the text of the Torah and we're trying to rely on our poor understanding, it can be tempting to reject some, grammarian or an independent grammarian's opinion out of, I don't know what to call it, like,
But
you
it
know,
wouldn't be my poor understanding on it at all because also his contemporaries would say the same thing that I'm saying, and even in verse
yeah,
six.
no, in this
Hold on,
case,
even in
he's
verse six,
literally disagreeing with the consensus of all
and then
the medactic.
and then in verse
But
16,
I'm just trying to explain
I got you, and then in verse
where, how he's in, not that he's entitled to that disagreement, but what is his actual disagreement, like how does he understand this word? It's worth trying to understand Aben Ezra even when we disagree
yeah,
with
even
Aben Ezra.
and even in verse 16, mitoch, you have the daggers inside the tav there again because the letter tav is not a guttural, so it can take that noon, it can take that daggers in germination. So this is why the hitter is under the mem there. Same thing with me bene Israel, same thing there. So I wasn't wrong when I said that that the aleph is rejecting the noon, the daggers in germination, and sending it back to the mem
No,
elongated.
we weren't disagreeing about whether the aleph can take a dagesh. Definitely the aleph is not getting a dagesh. I was just trying to give you examples of how mem is used as a prefix. That's really what I was trying to give you examples of.
Could you re-explain what's the question? I don't understand. Like, what's the back and forth of the argument or the disagreement? Like when a dagesh goes somewhere versus when it doesn't. Because I came into the conversation a bit late.
I
The
was saying
question was how to understand the word midaber in this pasuk of the voice speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu from the above the kaporet.
Which pasuk?
What was it? Hold on.
748.
789.
Hold on. Hold on. 789. So the question is on the word midaber.
Yeah, and so if you look at Aben Ezra, he disagrees with all the linguists and all the grammarians.
Uh, this was the way God's word always came to Moshe.
Yeah, I mean, because you understand from his perspective, it doesn't make any sense what all the grammarians are saying. And this is a perfect example of rationalism at work. Is
Perfect.
that what do you mean a self-emanating voice? What does it mean Moshe Rabbeinu was hearing a voice? The whole thing was Moshe Rabbeinu was getting thoughts beamed directly into his head.
Say that the word
no,
midaber.
it's not a reference to Moshe. Moshe is hearing the voice. So this voice that he's hearing speaking to itself from above the cherubim, the atonement seat. We know that this is the place where God will quote unquote dwell in the midst of the people. So
Yeah,
he's hearing this
but
voice speaking to itself. And we know.
what Aben Ezra says is that doesn't make any sense.
Can you hear me?
That's what I'm pointing out.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. All I'm saying is that Aben Ezra, so we understand where Aben Ezra is coming from, he's operating from the perspective of if it doesn't make sense, don't go with it. And this idea of a voice just popping into existence doesn't fit with how Aben Ezra sees the world working. All right, does that make sense to everybody? We're gonna, I think, unless do we have any more questions? I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, we can call it a week. Any questions from anybody in the audience? Feel free. No. All right, guys. It's been a great pleasure having the discussion tonight. My wife would like me to remind everyone we do have a Patreon. Contact me for details or look me up, Gilam Nadav, on Patreon. If you like the work we do, if you like these discussions, if you like the Torah we're teaching, then support it so that we can pay our bills too. All right, guys, it's great. Check out my Patreon. Is that what it is? That's what we say, Blackstem. All right, we've got Ariel Avrami. Invite to speak. You got in just at the end. I was just gonna. What's up, Ariel?
Not too much. I just want to let you guys know the gentleman above me is actually a Christian. So just putting that out there.
I appreciate that. We conduct these conversations in good faith, and people of all types are invited to bring their questions. I'm not looking to circle the wagons and defend anything against anyone. I'm just offering,
I'm
in my
sorry, my
opinion.
mistake. A Christian who masquerades himself as a Jew.
You're talking about Asael, I guess. Yeah, like I said, he hasn't caused any problems, and the questions have been good questions, and I'm happy to give my answer to them. And I hope that we can learn
Very
from the
good.
answers. Yeah, and I appreciate your concern, though, Ariel. And Yoshio Ben Yaakov, as somebody say. All right, sure. Hi, Yoshio.
Shalom, shalom,
Hi.
Shavua Tov.
Shalom Uberach, Shabbat Tov Uberach.
So look, I just got in late. Got there to the word in question was medaber, correct?
Midaber.
Yeah, medaber.
Midaber.
So okay, so I'm going to yeah. I just wanted to make sure that that's where you actually were, so I can like look into that further myself.
Yeah, sure. Okay, again, that's chapter 7, verse 89. The word in question is midaber, and is this hit by L or PL? Big machloket between all the grammarians on the one hand and Aben Ezra on the other hand.
Okay, all right. And what is your position on this, as far as
Like I
Hitpael or
said,
PL?
I think it's hit by L, but I understand Rabban Ezra's coming from.
Okay, okay, okay,
My bad, I had got a phone call.
okay.
Not a problem. All right, guys, it's been real. You're all wonderful, and I appreciate all the questions. Appreciate all the input and the contributions of everyone. And keep the questions coming. Feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can get that. I'll post a comment in the Global Torah Alliance house here on Clubhouse. So join the Clubhouse house, I guess. Join the Clubhouse. That's a weird way of putting it. Anyway, guys, have a great week. Shavua Tov.